In my very first video, I said this. The full reveal of my Zombicide project will be coming in a future video, probably the next one. But then in my second video, I said this. Quick aside, I did tease a big reveal trailer of my large Zombicide project that I've been working on. Yeah, I'm sorry, it will come out soon. But now, after a month, it hasn't been that long. Well, it's finally time. So, what is this video? Zombicide is a board game that I love. It's kind of just like dudes on a map style of game. You're playing as a variety of heroes, either by yourself or with other people, fighting zombies. So the year was 2024. Yes, I know, that was just last year. But I really was looking to make something with my hands. And I was like, what if I make the buildings for this game? This is what the tiles look like in the game when you buy it. They're flat tiles that have pre-illustrated buildings on them with some streets. I was sort of like, I could make this. I could build a 3D building like this as a creative outlet and to play this game on an epic 3D board. I did a quick Google search to see if anything like this had already existed. And sure enough, I found a video from this creator on YouTube called Terrain Pit, or their channel is called Terrain Pit. I don't think that's their name. I'm gonna link to it below and on the screen here somewhere. I found so much inspiration from it. I started writing down materials I needed, but I just got so excited. I got the itch and I got to work. Here's an example of a tile that has a building that goes across the middle, streets on either side, one room here and a bigger room on this side. And here is an example of it made into a 3D tile. So I have a street on both sides, and inside there are rooms. Stick around to the end of the video. I'm gonna get into the nitty-gritty of the mechanics of how I translated the rules of the game and what needed to be present in these 3D tiles in order to make the game work. First, we're gonna do a little bit of crafting. Now, a few months ago, when I decided to start this YouTube channel, I was kicking myself for not recording the Zombicide project. I would have loved to show you the ins and outs of how I made all of these tiles. I have to at least showcase this build that I was wrapping up right around the time that I started this YouTube channel. If you watched my first video, you might remember that street sign that I had crafted was the first player marker for this 3D version of Zombicide. But there was a problem. I thought the only thing I had left after that first player marker was painting the minis. I thought if I recruited my husband, him and I could spend a few days painting the minis, and between that and filming some B-roll of the full build, I could have something together by the next time I wanted to post a video. But once I looked at all the tiles and did a little inventory, I realized my to-do list was a lot longer. My to-do list started from this and actually ended up looking more like this. Broken satellite, sign connection, water effects, vehicles, faulty lights, billboards, cardboard props, greenhouse, staircases, metal cages on vault lights, crate indicators, skulls, plexiglass, broken sidewalks, miniatures. That's a lot. But this wasn't a bad thing because this gave me an opportunity to do a little crafting in this video, then do the big reveal. So if you're here for the big reveal, I don't blame you, it's kind of cool. Skip to this time code. Otherwise, if you want to see me finish up all of these little cryptic things that I just mentioned on that to-do list, then stick around. Most of these to-do list items are already in a various state of completion because again, I did the majority of the work on this project before I started filming anything. Let's get into it. First up is this little satellite that is broken. So I've just glued it back. And hey, what do you know? First thing done. Next up is a little bit more complicated. Just kidding, it's not. I forgot to paint this little connector bar here thing for this sign on this diner. So I grabbed out my rusty paint that you know I love to use, and I painted it. And another thing done. I promise they get a little bit more complicated and interesting. Like this. This is some Vallejo diorama water effects. And I just wanted to make everything look a little wet on the street, kind of gross, like maybe the sewer is spilling out, maybe it just recently rained. I imagine in the zombie apocalypse, the infrastructure of the city falls apart rather quickly and you're left with overflowing sewers and just generally pooling water. So I kind of just smeared this everywhere and it looks really good. Done. Next up is the vehicles. So this is a police car that needs just some extra paint. I added some paint a while back. I weathered up the wood a little bit, but I never really finished everything I wanted to do with this. This is one that I did finish. This is another vehicle that will be used in the game, and I love how this looks. It has a tons of metal paneling and rust and dirt and blood and just a lot of cool details, and I want to plus up the police car a little bit. Speaking of plussing up the police car a little bit, I pulled this flickering light out of another toy that I found. I thought this would be perfect for the police car, and I hope you agree. I kind of just wanted to glue it in the back. I know it looks a little janky and rough, but hey, it's the apocalypse. And yes, I'm using that excuse a lot. So I grabbed some Super Weld, which is a super glue that cures under UV light very, very hard that I just discovered, and I love it. And it is glued in. This stuff works great. This is where I broke the connection, so I'm gonna have my husband help me solder that later. But for now, I just glued up the lights. I wanted this to be able to be turned on, so I glued the switch to the bottom there. You can kind of see it in this time lapse, that red switch. And I just glued all the lights and kind of tried to glue some of the cables, but I didn't really mind if the cables were flying out everywhere because, again, this is post-apocalyptic. This is supposed to look like someone kind of, rigged this up haphazardly. And yeah, I think it looks cool with the wires. I also added some brighter orange rust, which, again, I've talked about ad nauseum. I only have 4 crafting videos, and I feel like I talk about rust all the time, so forgive me, but I like it. I think it's fun. I also added some metal, so this top part kind of looked a little bit more like a metallic platform. It had some window screen on it to give it a little bit of a texture. I also blotted it around to just look like the car was really chipping. It's getting there for sure. I also went in and added a little blood effects paint. I know it's gross, but it's a zombie apocalypse, so I feel like there'd be blood on it. I also added this little plow. Fun fact, that is a piece of plastic from the lid of a Cascade dishwashing pods box. So that's a cool texture. Oh, and here my husband soldered it for me, so it works better now. You can also see I added some dirt in this shot. I forgot to film that, but there it looks all done. So yeah, the cars and the faulty lights are done. Next up is the billboards. I started these billboards, I built them, I glued them up, I printed out the fronts of them. We've got a Nuka-Cola, a little nod to another post-apocalyptic game that I love, Fallout, and WB Mason, which is a very real office supply store. I don't know why that popped into my head. But yeah, I painted these up. This Nuka-Cola one already had some natural weathering in the print itself, so that kind of worked to my advantage. But I just wanted to finish these up and add a little bit more detail. They've been sitting on my table for months unfinished. So I'm adding some metallic, my kind of typical rust recipe that I have been using in literally all of my videos. The dark red, the metallic, and the bright orange rust. Just to add a little bit more streaky detail. These are really roached out, really gross looking billboards, and I just wanted them to look as such. I've said this in previous videos, but I like to keep the bright orange rust to the edges of the objects, places where water would pool naturally, and also the edges of the dark brown areas as well. I tend to think that looks realistic. So yeah, I glued in the Nuka-Cola one. It is not going anywhere with that Super Weld. And I glued in the WB Mason one on a different building. Then I glued the Nuka-Cola one in again to a different building. Yes, that is a different building. I had to move it, but now they're done. Next up is these cardboard props. So this is the inside of one of the buildings. Pay no attention to the awful paint job on the walls. I put a lot more love and care into the outsides of the buildings, I'll be honest. But I printed out a bunch of board games. I thought that would be fun. I'm pointing here to a copy of Zombicide, which is the game that this is for. A little meta. I think this is sort of a board game store. So I just glued a bunch of board games. I just wanted to glue in some more cardboard bits to add a little bit more detail to the interior. And yeah, I also wanted to add some more to the outside. So here I have some street signs that, again, were just printed out and glued onto cardboard. This is another inside, and I glued some more cardboard bits in the form of paintings. I thought this was kind of a fancy looking house, so I wanted to add a little bit more detail to the interior. After gluing all these in, I decided the ones on the outside really needed some weathering. The kind of exposed cardboard edge didn't really match the really weathered things like this newspaper that I had glued to the streets already. So I just added a quick wash and helped them kind of settle into the scene a little bit more. And that's pretty much it. All the cardboard props were done. Next up, this is a cool one. I wanted to make a little greenhouse. I started this and I never finished it. I just have this little piece of cardboard with grass, but it needs flowers. It needs flowers. So I took all the flowers I had, some little offcuts of bigger flowers that I got at the craft store, and just went to town, gluing them all together. The little plastic dome is actually what gave me this idea. This is just like a little cheap plastic bowl from the dollar store that I thought would be a cool little greenhouse atrium kind of thing on top of one of the buildings. You always see this in apocalyptic games and movies. There's always like kind of a beautifulness to the world when you have these really lush, overgrown floral kind of areas. I feel like as gross and dingy as this world is, it would be cool to have a little moment of beautiful flora, and yeah, this is what I went with. I will admit the scale is a little off. You'll see a little later in the video. It's kind of small. The flowers are kind of big, but then the greenhouse thingy itself is kind of small. I think it's fine. It's just a tiny little detail on one of 18 buildings. Here I'm roughing up the edges because I wanted to glue something to the top, and I also needed to glue the base to the bottom part of where the flowers are. I added some PVA glue and then a bunch of different flocking and static grass to the top. This was just my way of kind of making it look like this top part collected some growth and leaves and stuff over the years. It also hides the fact that this is a tiny little bowl from the dollar store. Here I'm grabbing my trusty angled miter shear and quickly cutting some bits of dowel to act as legs. I just wanted this kind of lifted up off the ground a little bit. I don't know why. Really no reason. And I'm actually really surprised at how stable and not wiggly this was when I put it down on the table. I was expecting it to be wobbling all over the place, but I think it looks really good. Because I raised it up off the ground, I felt like it needed some stairs. Additionally, this is the exit marker that I made for the game. It's supposed to look like a vault. I put some little tea lights in there that you can see are lit up. I love this thing. But I felt like the scale was a little hard to kind of picture. Here it is next to a mini. It's supposed to be this huge, massive vault. So I thought adding some stairs to this as well, while I was adding stairs to the greenhouse, would be a perfect way to kind of drive that scale home. Here I am making these perfect 45-degree angles with the miter shear. I love this thing, and this is where it really sings. This construction is sketchy. I would not recommend this. I just glued these in without any sort of grooves or any sort of better glue other than hot glue, and at first it worked. As you can see, I'm very proud of this adorable little staircase. But once I started adding some washes, which you will see in a moment, let's just say everything literally fell apart. I usually talk all about how I don't really care about structural stability of things, and I don't, to be honest, I don't still. But I don't know, these stairs could have used a little bit more planning, because once I added this, which is a mixture of glue, water, and some flocking to add kind of some moss and growth to these stairs, you can kind of see in a moment that the stairs, yeah, right there, just completely started falling apart. Once I got to the little set of stairs that goes up to the greenhouse, that's when things truly did not go well. The whole railing there is falling off. I don't know if it was the wash or the other stuff that I'm adding now, but I was hoping this glue flock mixture would kind of seal it, so I just left it there to dry, and it kind of worked. Lastly, I took the rest of this flock and added it to the top. I honestly probably should have left well enough alone. In the end, I think it looked better before, but I don't know, whatever. This is just 1 out of 18 buildings, guys, and I gotta finish this project up. And it looks pretty cute on top of the building, I think. Oh, I also added this cool vine dead leaf stuff that I bought. I forget where I bought this, but I love this stuff. I really don't know how well it looks here, but you can kind of see it in the final reveal. I also added it to some of the buildings. Lastly, I wanted some little metal cages for the lights on this vault, and I think this actually looked really good, despite how I was not super pleased with the way that the structural integrity of the stairs turned out. This looks awesome with these little cages, so I'm glad I did that. And yeah, all 3 of these things done. Pro tip, add the simplest things to your to-do list if you want to feel productive. Yes, I know I just checked off like 3 things in a row. I could have just put them all as one, like do the vault and the greenhouse. But it's fun checking things off, so add more things to your checklist. Make it really long, then you feel better checking all the things off, right? Next up is my very fancy homemade airbrushing booth. I wanted to airbrush some little X's on the roofs. You'll see why later on in the video. I just used some masking tape and airbrushed some red and also some yellow, which you don't see on camera, X's onto the roof. I used the same color and sprayed some little boxes with the use of a little chipboard, a stencil, on the inside. Again, I'll explain this later in the video. I then dug into my box of Citadel skulls. These things are awesome. You can really see the detail from this shot. Some of them are just normal skulls. Some have these like gnarly cracks in them. Some of them are totally split. Some have the jaw hanging off. They're really cool and really detailed. And I sprayed a bunch of them up with primer. A lot of the footage ended up looking like this. I'm so sorry. Airbrushing is hard, but I was so excited to use these skulls. Hey, look, I think my shots have gotten marginally better since my first episode. If you watch my first episode, some of the shots are blurry, out of focus, grainy. I've dialed in a lot, so forgive these shots where it's really blurry and my hand is pulling focus every 2 seconds. Anyway, skull's done. Now moving on to plexiglass. This was so freaking finicky. I almost didn't want to finish this. I started by cutting out some of the windows in plexiglass. It was such a pain to get them into the windows. I went to use my super weld that I used earlier in the video to find that it was completely glued shut. I know it looks like it's coming off here, but I tried so hard to get the lid off and I couldn't. So I had to switch to regular super glue. I also ended up just cutting this plexiglass into tiny little shards to make broken windows because I could not fathom spending the amount of hours it would take me to cut out each window. There's like at least 3 to 4 windows on each of the 18 tiles. That's like over 50, and I think some of them have more than 3 to 4. So yeah, I started just making broken windows because this was a real pain, but it looks kind of cool. So, you know, I'm glad I at least added broken ones in. Speaking of broken, I needed to fix these sidewalks. A couple of the tiles, I basically just forgot to add these little sidewalk corner details to some of them. There weren't that many, so it was easy to miss because it wasn't like the norm. Like only a few of them had them, and I made like 2 and I was missing 2, I think. So here I am carving in a little broken sidewalk. It didn't need to be broken. I just did that because I made the sidewalks like the very first thing that I did, which means it was in February 2024 that I made the first set of sidewalks. So I couldn't remember exactly what paints I used, even what materials I used. I just couldn't remember. So I was like, well, I can match it, but I'm going to make them broken because I don't want you to be able to tell that I made these a year and a half later. I added some cork for the street. This one had a similar problem. I had already made a sidewalk, but I accidentally had put it on the wrong side of the base. So I had to glue the building on the one side, rip the sidewalk off, not in that order, and here I am gluing it back on. You will notice there are some gaps in the back, so I want to fix that as well, which I do next. Along with the new sidewalk, I also take this old, moved sidewalk and added some Sculptamold to get some kind of earth texture in there. I was thinking this could be just some dirt and grass. I added some rocks, and I waited for that to dry before adding a bunch of Mod Podge and black paint to seal everything up. This is the step where it really all starts to come together, and I'm like feeling really close at this point. I added a lot of green and brown to the earth parts, just, to make it look like earth. I was a lot more careful with this one because there was already a lot of pre-painted elements to this. I added some gray for the sidewalk. I also went in with a dry brush of that same gray to just pull out some of the rock details before adding the grass. And next I added the grass. I used some fine foam flocking, try saying that 3 times fast. I didn't bother with the static grass because it was such a small chunk. I did try to seal it all in with this spray tack, but you can see here that I clogged the nozzle last time I used it, so I had to take it out with a little pipette instead, which worked fine. I did the other tile as well. This one has a lot more grass because it's a broken sidewalk, so I'm thinking the grass has really overtaken this little section of street. I'm spraying some isopropyl alcohol to help the spray tack really seep into everything. I then added a wash, which looks... Look, I know this wash doesn't look that good, and it really doesn't look like the original sidewalk tiles, but I have been working on this for a year and a half, and I am tired. So yeah, this is as good as it's gonna get. It looks better on this one where I'm just blending it in with the original sidewalk, but you can still kind of tell it's off, but oh well. Finally was the miniatures. I filmed about 2 seconds of this. The reason is because it's hard to film. I did it with my husband. We were kind of just hanging out, and I didn't want to bother setting up my camera. I'm also not about to be a golden demon winner. I mean, look, I'm really stoked with how these came out, and I also love painting miniatures. It just wasn't like the focus for this project, so I just filmed a little bit of it. And then I was done with the list. Finally done with everything. Oh my gosh. I've been working on this since February 2024, and you only saw a tiny snippet of it. Go for those big projects if you have them. They are so rewarding and so satisfying, but oh my gosh, I am so glad for this to be done. I'm also really excited to play this with my friends. If you're interested in seeing that, by the way, let me know. I would love to film it in some way. I would obviously get the permission of my friends and figure out how that looks like. But at the very least, I'll definitely share some photos of the game in progress. So follow me on Instagram here if you want to follow along with that journey, which hopefully is happening soon, sometime over the summer. And finally, before the big reveal, I know I'm teasing it a lot. You're welcome to skip to the time code if you want. I wouldn't blame you. I do want to talk a little bit about the mechanics of the game and how I crafted these tiles to work with the mechanics of the game. I'm a huge board game nerd. I'm hoping to do more board game related crafts on this channel in the future. And if you're really nerdy about mechanics and rules and stuff like that and how it pertains to crafting, stick around. So the first thing I had to consider when making these tiles was this. Some of the rooms in the buildings are in shadow. When you enter a building in Zombicide, zombies spawn in the dark rooms. So it was really important to me to be able to tell which rooms were enshrouded in darkness from a 3D perspective. And I kind of racked my brain. I had all these convoluted ideas, like maybe I rig up some sort of piece of black felt in the roof. I don't know. I went with, I think, a more simple solution, which is this. The room that is in darkness is directly below the 2-story part of the building. So when you see the grand reveal, you'll notice some of the buildings have 2-story sections like this, and some are 1-story. And that's because I needed it to match the layout of the buildings. So if you can kind of picture this in this way, you can see how this tile has darkness on this 1/3, and so does this building. I think this was a cool solution. So when you go into the door of the building, when you break down the door for the first time, you will reveal the roofs, and we know to spawn the zombies into this room. As I'm going through these mechanics, if you have better ideas, let me know in the comments. I'm not gonna redo anything, obviously. I cannot. But I still wanna hear about it because I love this kind of stuff. I'm nerdy about this kind of stuff. Let me know if you have any better ideas. The roofs being on the top solved that and honestly looked really a lot better. I didn't want to do these buildings without the fully realized roof and architecture of the building. But it presented yet another problem, which is this. You can see this red crate that has this X on it. There's also a yellow one right here. These are pre-printed spots. They are in all of the buildings that show where you place objective crates and pimp weapon crates. It's a silly name. I don't really like saying it, but it's fine. Pimp weapon crates and objective crates. I needed to be able to tell where those were with the roofs already on. I wanted to keep the roofs on until you enter the building, or else it would kind of break the immersion. But I didn't want to have to change the rules of the game. Like when you're playing the game with these tiles, you can see clear as day, there's perfect information on where these crates are. So my solution there was spraying markers on the roof. There's a red one here for objective markers and a yellow one there for pimp weapon crates. So all of the roofs you'll see in the reveal have these on there. Really, it was just important to me that they were roughly over the rooms where those weapons were contained. So you knew if you had multiple door options, you know that there's an objective weapon and a crate, a pimp weapon crate and an objective marker in this room. You also need a way to be able to tell once the crates or objectives have been picked up. So I crafted little crates. These are pimp weapon crates, and these are the objective markers. There's blue and green ones as well, as just to match the components of the actual game. I spray painted a sort of spot for the crate to go. That's not important, I just thought it looked cool. And you would just put the crate inside and then pick it up once you've achieved this objective. Another challenge I had to figure out was with the doors. So I mentioned this briefly when I talked about opening, breaking down the doors, and spawning the zombies in. In the pre-printed game, there's these doors, they're closed, and there are tokens in the box that look like a broken door, and you place it over the door when you break through it. I did the opposite. I made a bunch of these doors, and the idea is that they fit into the slot. So when you go up to this door in the game and you want to break it down, you just do that action and remove the door. And I cut them out so perfectly to size, and I made the doors all so perfectly that none of these doors have trouble fitting in, and I didn't pick one that specifically fits really nice just for video. I don't know why you would even think that. I don't know why you would bring that up. They definitely all fit perfectly. The next thing was the vehicles. You saw me work on the police car. This one is called the Pimpmobile, which again is so silly. I made this out of a toy food truck. You can kind of still see the pizza printed on there. Yeah, a food truck toy that I bought from Goodwill or something like that, and painted it up. The challenge here mechanically was you need to be able to fit 4 players onto the car at once. That's how the game works. I just needed a big enough car where I could attach a platform to the top and place 4 minis. So I tested it out. I don't have 4 minis in front of me right now, but 4 fit. And same with the police car. That's why that one also has some platforms on top. So that was the challenge here. It was actually really fun to kind of figure out how this was gonna work. Originally, I wanted them to be able to fit inside, but that wasn't gonna work. The only other thing that I don't have in front of me right now, but I did mention in the crafting portion of this video, is the exit marker. So that is the vault with the lights on it. And again, in the game, it's just a piece of cardboard that says exit on it. In most of the scenarios, that's where all the players have to get to win the game and end the scenario. And I just thought it would be cool to be a vault, to look like they're getting to safety. I don't know if that makes sense with the flavor text of some of the scenarios, but I thought it was really cool. The last thing is spawn points. This is a little concrete barrier that I made. These are the spawn points in the game. Every turn in the game, some more zombies spawn from certain points in the street. And again, I didn't want to just use the cardboard tile that comes in the game. So I was thinking, what's a thematic urban element that I could add that would work for a spawn point? And this is what I came up with. I'm really happy with these. I carved these out of some XPS foam. I didn't even bother painting the bottoms. And I just added a little metal to the top, a little paint. I think these came out awesome. Oh yeah, one more thing about these. There is one in the game that is the first spawn. Basically, wherever the first one is, they all then happen clockwise, I think. Basically, there needed to be one that was different. And that one is just broken in half. You can see it right here. So yeah, it's that one that's broken in half there. I thought that was different enough, but didn't make it look irregular. I'm really happy with how these came out. These were really fun to do. And I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I know this video has had a lot of talking. Please enjoy the reveal after this. It's been a year and a half of work. I spent a lot of time on it and I hope everybody enjoys it. Let me know if you have any questions about the process in the comments. I'd love to answer those. Huge shout out to my husband. I know I shout him out a lot, but he helped me so much with this project, not just getting the art side of things done. He helped me with the minis and some other things, but also was a humongous help shooting the final reveal. And lastly, I'm just gonna plug myself for a second. I've started this other series called the Weekly-ish Roundup on this very channel. You might have seen them if you subscribe to me. It's a different type of thing. I'm not crafting in those videos. They're shorter videos where I'm just talking about really cool builds and crafts and nerdy artsy things that I've seen on the internet for the past week-ish. And they're so much fun. I wanna keep doing them. New YouTubers always, I think, have this worry about losing followers. I have about 300 now. I'm so grateful for all of you. I don't want you to be turned off by these weekly roundup videos, but I'm gonna give them a little bit more of a shot for a little bit longer to see if I can help them gain a little bit of traction, because I think there's something that this hobby space doesn't have currently, and I'm really excited about them. The crafting videos are what I'm gonna focus on most of the time, but if you're interested in crafting and building, I really think you'll like the weekly roundup videos. So again, just a little plug for myself. I'm gonna have another one coming out very soon after this video is posted, so please check that out if you feel so inclined. See if it's for you. If you don't like it, let me know, because I actually want to know that. But if you do like it, also let me know about that, and give them a watch if you're undecided, because I think that you'll find them interesting. You might find some new creators that you've never heard of before. And finally, what you've all been waiting for, the final reveal.